My name is Najma Ahmed. I'm a community program coordinator at CEE, and today I'm joined by my colleague Sean Rodin, and I'm going to pass it off to Daniel to kick us off with um, welcoming.
Wonderful. Thank you. So good evening to everyone. My name is Daniel Borgert-Pepping. I want to welcome you to the sixth session of the Sustainable Eagan Academy. I'm your host tonight. I've been an Eagan resident for 3 years. I live over by Thomas Lake, and I work in Hennepin County for the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. I've been a member of the Sustainable Eagan Advisory Committee since earlier this year. I was appointed. So the Sustainable Eagan Advisory Commission is a volunteer advisory commission that advises the City Council on environmental sustainability. And the Sustainable Eagan Academy is a program of our advisory commission. The SEAC, we call it the Advisory Commission SEAC, SEAC, has 8 members. Our current members are Ian Zizi, the chair, Peggy Korsmo-Kennan, our vice chair, Janae Douglas, the secretary, Brett Matson, Bill Raker, Chris Riesenberg, Jithin Banthala, and myself. So before we get to the speakers that we have for you tonight, I want to mention that the Sustainable Eagan Academy offers a certificate of completion. If you attend 4 of 5 sessions in a single year or attend 7 sessions between 2 years, so like 7 sessions from 2026 into 2027, you would receive a certificate. And we have details coming later this year about the 2027 sessions. If you're interested in attending a future session, we have 3 more opportunities this fall in partnership with Electrify Everything Minnesota. The next 2 sessions are going to be in person at the Eagan Community Center. So on September 10th, you can join us for another opportunity to hear information shared today. October 8th, we're taking a deeper dive into heat pumps, and you can hear from a panel of Eagan residents about their home electrification experiences. And then on November 12th, you can join us for a session focused on electrifying everyday appliances, including water heating, cooking, and clothes drying. And then I want to introduce our guest speakers who you're here for this evening, Najma Ahmed and Sean Rodin. Najma uses she, her pronouns, is a community program coordinator for the Center for Energy and Environment. She supports community programs like Electrify Everything Minnesota and the Residential Time of Sale Energy Disclosure Program in the cities of Minneapolis and Bloomington. Sean is a community program coordinator at Center for Energy and Environment, and he works on a variety of community-based projects helping residents use cleaner, more efficient forms of energy. Sean's background is in energy efficiency, affordable housing, and education.
Thank you for the introduction, Daniel. So today we're going to talk about the basics of electrifying your home, the what, why, and how of home electrification. And we would like to thank the City of Eagan for sponsoring this webinar. So we have quite a few things on our agenda today. We'll talk about what is electrification, the importance of it, and why we should electrify our homes. And then we're going to get into the components of electrification, which are weatherization, heating, appliances, and then we'll talk about how to get your home ready for this process, as well as resources that are available to you. Throughout this presentation, you could ask clarifying questions. Please feel free to throw them in the chat or raise your hand. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A session. So no worries if you come up with more questions at the end. And lastly, these slides, as well as like all the resources we talk about, will be emailed to you. So if you're trying to take notes, no worries, I'll send these out later this week. So what is electrification? And I guess what's the hype about it? Electrification is replacing fossil gas, also known as natural gas, equipment and appliances with electrically powered options. So basically, you're moving from gas to electric, and when these equipments would be like water heaters, clothes dryers, we're talking about stove ranges, furnaces, boilers, etc. Electrify Everything Minnesota program is a program that aims to support the gradual electrification of single-family homes in order to promote resident health and climate sustainability through education, just like this webinar, one-on-one support, as well as financial resources and contractors. There's a emphasis on gradual here because electrification is a long process. There are so many projects and key aspects in this, and often residents like to space them out. So we like to remind people that we're here to support them in this journey. There are several reasons why we should electrify our homes, and one of them is that there are growing options to use clean electricity. And the electric grid is getting cleaner as like coal plants are closing or get retired and like renewables are scaled up. So the goal is for the grid to be 100% carbon free by 2040. And right now in Minnesota, it's about 54%. Another reason why we should electrify is that using electricity is safer. Electric appliances remove the common hazards of like gas equipment in your home, like indoor air pollution and like combustion hazards that like gas appliances leave behind, which is not in general not safer for us. So it's much safer electrifying your home. And another reason is that electricity rates are more stable. The electricity rates historically grow at an incremental pace, while fossil fuel like natural gas prices have had much more fluctuation. And one reason is that electricity prices are regulated by the State Utilities Public Commission, so they kind of have to mitigate prices and rates in those, whereas gas prices depend on other factors such as supply and demand, global markets, and other events. And lastly, another reason why we should electrify is that electrifying our homes makes a difference for the health of people and planet. I talked a little bit ago, I talked about the safety of like why we should electrify our homes and how it has an impact on our health, and how gas releases these indoor air pollutions. But another reason is the planet. If you're someone who cares about like the climate change as well as the negative impact that we're leaving on the planet, I think this is a great way to go about contributing positively to a change. Now that we know what electrification is and its importance and why we should electrify, there's one challenge to it, and that is electrification can be confusing. If this is your first time you're hearing about this word or you're starting out your projects, oftentimes residents have a lot of questions, homeowners have a lot of questions, and some of these questions are, how do I decide which projects to pursue? Earlier, I mentioned this is a gradual process. So deciding which project to start with first, which one should you prioritize? That's one challenge that people often face. Other questions are, what are equipment options and how do they compare to each other? What resources and incentives are available to help as all these projects can be costly? And lastly, who do I talk to for guidance and bids? What can I DIY myself? And what do I need to seek a contractor for? So all these are great questions. A lot of homeowners have them, and today we'll be answering all of these questions. The key projects for electrifying a single family home are weatherization, heating, water heating, clothes drying, and cooking. So why do we talk about weatherization when we talk about electrification? And that is because 72% of the energy usage in Minnesota goes towards heating the average home. And, and that is simply because like we have like harsh winter months. And then compare that to the rest of the country, the national average is like 39%. So overall, Minnesota uses a lot more energy for heating than the national average. There are two questions that come up when we talk about how to save energy and boost sustainability. And those questions are, how much heat do our homes need? And how are we providing that heat? Weatherization involves improving the parts of the home that keep heated or cooled air from escaping. So basically making sure air that's inside your home remains inside and the one that's outside doesn't come in. So we're talking about insulating your walls and attics. So insulation, that's like the fluffy thing in your attics. We're talking about air sealing, making sure there isn't air leaks, as well as treating windows, as weatherization makes electrification easier and more effective. Reasons to insulate and air seal are that homes built prior to 1980 often lack wall and attic insulation. So a home that's well insulated and well air sealed saves you about 18% in like heating and cooling costs in Minnesota. It's cost effective, it improves comfort, it prevents ice dams, and lastly, it sets up your home for electrification. Air sealing is basically making sure like there aren't little nooks and crooks in your home where air can escape or come in from. So that's why air sealing is an essential part of insulation work. Some common areas in a home where air leaks can happen include attic hatches, areas around lighting, vents and chimneys, and room joists in basements. And then lastly, mechanical ventilation like continuous fan baths maintain healthy indoor air quality, leading to having a home having good air insulation. These images are from Home Energy Squad audit. So they used infrared camera, a really good full camera where during the audit they use this camera to detect where in a home there is like air leaks. So in this place on the right image, it's all the purple spots, so like the attic hatch, and then we can see like ceiling along as well as along the window. Weatherization is critical before addressing heating because it makes electrifying your homes, it makes weatherization makes electrifying your home's heating much more affordable and effective, and it reduces heating load an average of 18%. So a heat pump can work more effectively. And now I am gonna pass it off to Sean to talk about the next big component of electrification, which is heating.
Thank you, Najma. If you could go to the next slide. Okay, so Najma mentioned these two questions about saving energy. How much heat do our homes need? How can we reduce the amount of heat and energy that we use to heat our homes? And the second question is, how are we providing that heat? And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So next slide. Okay, first of all, my question for you all, and you can respond either in the chat, you can type up an answer, you can use the React. There's a little graphic heart at the bottom. Do a react. Put something in the chat. Let me know if you've heard of heat pumps or not, or maybe a little bit, yes, but a little. Okay, I see a green check mark. Laughing, crying emoji. Good. I don't know what that means, but you know. Oh, it's a thumbs up. Okay, great. Okay, so we got a couple people who've heard about heat pumps. And if you haven't, well, you're in the right place. Next slide. So heat pumps are pretty cool and also very warm in that they're a very efficient technology, but they're not necessarily revolutionary because a heat pump, what it essentially does is it moves heat or pumps heat through refrigerant like a two-way air conditioner. So if you had a heat pump in your home right now, it's still summer, still in the 80s. Your heat pump would work like an air conditioner. It would pump heat, pull heat from the inside of your home and pump it outside and then cool the air that is inside your home. And that's what an air conditioner does. You can stand on the side of a fan, the outside of an air conditioner, and feel that warm air being blown out of a building. However, I said it works like a two-way air conditioner because heat pumps also can heat your home. They can do the exact same thing when the temperatures drop and you need heat inside your home to keep it comfortable. They use that same refrigerant to attract heat from the outdoors and they move that refrigerant through some tubes into your home and keeping your home warm. So that's why we say it's like a two-way air conditioner. It's moving heat from one place to another, depending on the season. One of the big advantages of heat pumps is that they're flexible and they work in a lot of different types of setups in homes. And the two major types of heat pumps are ducted and ductless. So I assume I don't know if all of you live in Eagan, but I know Eagan is probably predominantly a central AC system. So you would look at a ducted or central system. This is common with central AC or with furnaces. And in fact, a heat pump, if you were to install one, would replace your central AC because, like I said, it does the exact same thing. So this is what a unit setup looks like. The outdoor unit actually looks pretty similar to what um, a central AC unit would look like, kind of like a cube. Although you can notice it's sitting on a stand, and that is so that it can run in the winter without being interfered or inundated with snow. So that's really the only difference. But the indoor unit sits above the furnace. It's the same as your central AC system. So on the surface of things, it doesn't look that different. And then those refrigerant lines are where the path through which it moves that heat either in or out, depending on the season. And then it integrates into your central AC system, much like your current setup. Next slide. So say you don't have a central AC system, you have a boiler or electric baseboards, then you would choose a ductless or a mini split system. These are common with boilers or baseboards and homes without central AC or without ducted systems. So our outdoor unit looks a little bit different. We say it looks like a giant suitcase, but also notice it's on that stand. It's sitting elevated as well, so it can work in the winter. But it also uses refrigerant lines to move that heat. And then the indoor unit also looks a little bit different. Those things are called heads or cassettes, and they usually sit on the upper part of a wall in different rooms or zones of the home, depending on where you want to heat and cool. Next slide. One thing to know about heat pumps is that they are very efficient, most efficient in either hot to cool weather. In fact, depending on the conditions, a heat pump can be anywhere from 150% to 400% efficient. That means it produces 4 units of energy for every 1 unit that it consumes, or 1.5 units for every unit it consumes. But that depends on those conditions that I mentioned. So this graph, on the horizontal axis, we have the outdoor temperature between 65 degrees and -15 degrees. And on the vertical axis, we have the amount of heating that's being provided, measured in BTUs, British thermal units, just amount of heat per hour. So at 65 degrees, our heat pump is providing about 40,000 BTUs per hour. But we see as the temperatures drop, 55, 45, 35, all the way down to -15, which it sometimes gets that cold here. Rarely, but it does get down there. The heat pump isn't quite as efficient, and that's because, like I said, it's pulling heat from the outdoor air to heat your home. And as it gets colder, there's just less heat in the air. So the heat pump has to work harder to provide the same amount of heat. So very efficient at hot to cool temperatures, but as the temperature drops, the efficiency does go down. Next slide. But the good news is, even in Minnesota, which has pretty cold for the continental US, some of the coldest winters, and some of the longest heating season temperatures, 80% of the time we're actually above 20 degrees. We tend to think of the heating season as being really, really cold, but it starts in September, October, depending on the year, and then can go all the way till April, perhaps May. And so that's a long season. So the brutal temperatures are relatively short. Most of our time we're above 20 degrees, and a heat pump can work really efficiently above 20 degrees. So that's the good news for heat pumps. Next slide. Okay, we talked a little bit about their efficiency and how they work. Let's talk about how they can partially or fully electrify your heating needs, depending on if you have a hybrid or an all-electric system. Next slide. So a hybrid system. A hybrid system is an electric heat pump paired with a fossil fuel system, commonly a furnace or a boiler. Some of the benefits of this type of setup is that they can keep energy bills neutral, or they can actually lower energy bills depending on a lot of different factors. Most people do see either cost parity or lower bills. And it can also significantly reduce your household carbon emissions if that's your goal, because say your air source heat pump is running that 80% of the time or 80% of those heating hours. That 80% was previously done by either your furnace or your boiler, and instead it's being done by electricity. So that's a significant reduction. The drawbacks are that the setup can be complicated depending on the existing equipment. If you have a boiler, sometimes you have to have two sets of controls for the two systems. Some furnaces may or may not be compatible. Most modern furnaces are, but you always want to consult a contractor to find out if your system will be compatible or if you might have to consider or do a replacement. Next slide. So this is how the heating and cooling with a hybrid system works throughout the year. In the summer, like I said before, your heat pump will be cooling just like an air conditioner. In the fall, the heat pump will start to heat your home. In the winter, or at least the coldest parts of winter, we could say, depending on the heat pump, but we'll say below 20 degrees, the furnace is doing the heating. Heat pump might step in here or there. But in the spring, when the temperatures rise, the heat pump will pick up the heating duties once again. Next slide. What about an all-electric system? Well, an all-electric system is that same heat pump, but paired with an electric plenum, or what's essentially an electric resistance system, or an electric furnace. The benefits are that this can be simpler to set up because it's electricity talking to electricity, one integrated electric system. And again, if your motivations are to reduce carbon emissions, then this is the way to maximally or to most do that. The drawbacks are that your winter heating bills will be more expensive because generally speaking, at least in the winter, it's cheaper to heat with natural gas than with electricity. In the shoulder season, that can be a different story. But the second part of this is that a cold climate heat pump will be necessary for you. High efficiency heat pump, which it does have higher upfront costs, but if you want to take advantage of some of those incentives that we're going to mention later on in the presentation, then a cold climate heat pump you'll need to get one of those to get the incentives. So there's a little bit of trade-off, and they are more efficient, so the operating cost could be lower, but they are more expensive up front. Next slide. And the heating and cooling with this all-electric system looks very similar. In the summer, the heat pump is cooling. In the fall, it starts heating. In the winter, the heat pump will trade places with the electric secondary heat with that electric plenum. And then in the spring, the heat pump can once again do the heating for the home. Next slide. And we talked about other projects, so that's heating, but we have more to talk about. So we're going to go into water heating, cooking, and clothes drying. And Najma, this is where I pass it off to you.
Thank you, Sean. So how do we heat our water? Heat pump water heaters, or what we will use in this case, heat pump water heaters are very energy efficient. They are over 3 times more energy efficient than the traditional electric tanks. And they're very much safer than gas, simply because they do not release these combustions into the air like standard gas would. And how they work is that they work very simply. So like a heat pump unit extracts heat from the surrounding air, just like a lot of heat pump appliances, they use this cool technology that extracts heat from the surrounding air. Cold water goes in, and then that extracted heat from the surrounding air heats your water. And then at the other end of the heat pump, cool, dry air is discharged and hot water goes out to the rest of your home for you to use hot water. And another cool thing about heat pump water heaters is that they also have electric resistant rods inside them that act as a booster and heats water when if there's a high demand for. And With a heat pump water heater, you can save a lot with a heat pump water heater, and so compared to the standard electric water heater, with a heat pump water heater, you'll save between 300 to $500 dollars yearly, and that's simply because they're very energy efficient and people love them for that. And then compared to like the traditional gas water heaters, with a heat pump water heater, you'll break even to or save up to $175 yearly. And that is because gas rates are not similar to like electric rates. Another big energy usage in our home is cooking or cooking appliances. And in this case, induction ranges or induction stoves are very common nowadays, primarily because they're a solution to our cooking needs. They're very energy efficient, and they also use the heat pump technology. And the way they work is that it transfers energy directly to the cooking pan through a magnetic field. They boil water very quickly. They boil about 1 quart of water in like 2 minutes. They don't overheat the cooktop, and a lot of people, especially people with kids or like elderly people, love them for that. They're very easy to clean. If you look at the image on the right, it has like a glass top, so it's a level surface, so it doesn't have like nooks and crust that you have to get into clean. And however, cookware must be magnetic. So there's some cookwares that are compatible with those. And in order to test those out, you can either, I think nowadays it's like written on it at the bottom, or you can use a magnet to test it out. Another good alternative is the traditional electric range. They create heat by running a current through a heating element. They either come with the rods or they have like a glass top. They are also very widely available and affordable. They have been around for a really long time, so they're very much available. They also they're very much like less energy efficient than the induction range, and they may be like slower to warm up and cool down. Range safety and indoor air pollution. Earlier, I talked about how gas stoves release these indoor like hazardous pollutants into the air, so such as like nitrogen dioxide, carbon monoxide, and they may even leak when they're off, which is not that safe. One reason people love to get either the heat pump or like the electric option is simply because of these hazardous reasons. And then studies and research has shown that children living in households with gas ranges are 40% more likely to have asthma, as well as other health complications. So electric cooking does not have these issues. And lastly, another big energy usage in our home are our clothes appliances. Heat pump clothes dryers, also known as ventless clothes dryers. You also use a very cool heat pump technology that recirculates warm air to draw away moisture. They do not need venting, and people like them because let's say you want to move your clothes dryer from your basement to another part in your home, such as like your living room. It doesn't need venting, so it's easier to do that. They're most energy efficient option. They're gentler on clothes, and however, they have like longer cycles compared to like the traditional clothes dryers that dry clothes in between like 45 minutes to an hour. These take about an hour to an hour and a half. Another option is the electric resistance dryers. They use heat from electric coils. They also dry clothes very quickly. However, they need venting to the outside, and they're very widely available and affordable to buy. But it uses two times more electricity than a heat pump dryer would. Now I'm going to pass it off back to Sean to talk about how you can get your home ready for electrification.
Thank you, Najma. Next slide. So we know that this all sounds very exciting and you're probably all ready to jump in, but the truth is that some of your homes may need pre-work before electrifying. And so, especially if they're older homes. And so common upgrades needed by older homes are modern wiring. If you have knob and tube wiring in your home, then you will likely you'll almost certainly need to replace that before you start to electrify, and an upgraded service panel. And so, depending on the size of your service panel, you may or may not be able to take on more electrical load. So, if you have a panel that says it's 60 amps, that you will certainly need to upsize. And that's for mostly homes that are pretty old. 100 amps, pretty common, and that depends on your home and your goal. How much of your home do you want to electrify your appliances? Do you want to buy a jacuzzi or a sauna or something else and put that in there alongside your other electric appliances? Well, you'll want to think about that when deciding whether you want to upgrade or not. And then if you have a panel that is between 150 and 200 amps, your upsizing is unlikely. But as always, we advise you to consult an electrician regarding the needs for your home, and they can tell you based on your current load and then your panel size and then your future plans, what you may need. And if you're curious about what size your panel is, we have a photo there. And normally the total amperage of the panel is on main breaker. And so that main breaker is there in the top middle. It's that switch that's sitting alone. And on that switch, it often says 100, 200, 60, whatever the number is for the amperage of the panel. So you can look at that and get an idea of what your panel size is. Next slide. As I mentioned, aside from the knob and tube wiring, electrifying appliances may also require different types of wiring. So switching from gas to electric appliances often, but not always, requires 240 volt wiring and capping gas lines, certainly capping gas lines, but the 240 volts, it depends. So heat pump water heaters, many models are 240 volts, but there are also more and more 120 volts water heaters available. So you should look into that and whether one of those could meet your household needs. And you may save yourself, if you don't have the 240 volt outlet, you may save yourself some electrical work. Electric stoves almost always require, whether it's induction or traditional, require 240 volt outlets. I think there's one stove that doesn't require it, but it has a big battery pack and it's about $6,000 currently. So that's an option, but most of them, almost certainly because of just the power they draw, will need the 240 volts. And then with an electric clothes dryer, most one-for-one replacements will require 240 volts. There are 120 volt models available. They tend to be smaller, and that may work for you and your household, but you'll want to look into that and do some research before choosing one of those models. And again, talk to an electrician or an HVAC technician about your household size and how many loads of laundry you do or how many showers people are taking, and they can guide you toward options that will fit your needs. Next slide. All right, let's talk about money. So, uh, for a lot of these things, of course, yeah, I just mentioned the wiring, and the appliances they all cost money. So there are different type of incentives available. If you look to the left of this table, there are utility rebates, and I know you have a variety of utilities in Eagan. CenterPoint, Excel, Dakota, Electric, and Merck. They all have different rebates for different products, depending if they're gas or electric. And then expected in 2027 will be state rebates and federal rebates that if you want to know about them, stay tuned with the City of Eagan, or you can look at the Department of Commerce website. They've been on hold for a while, but that is where you can go for the latest information. For the different technologies, we have estimated costs of these and what incentives are available. We don't have the utilities, but you'll have to look at your utility and see if it meets this number or a different number. But insulation, air sealing, depending on what you need to do, is it your walls, your attic, how much you need. It can be between 7 and 13,500, and there's up to 3,000 available. For an air source heat pump, it also varies widely depending on the area of your home, how big your home is, if you want a ductless or a ducted system, but 12 to 24,000. My parents got one this past year and it was 18,000, so it was right in there. There's up to 2,200 available through the utilities. Heat pump water heater, that'll run you between 4 and 7,000, and there's up to $500 available. And if you need that panel upgrade, that will, those costs can vary widely. I would say probably, yeah, maybe on the higher end of that 2 to 5,000, but it really just depends. But up to 1,500 is available currently for those incentives. All right, next slide. All right, and if you want to kind of maybe skip doing the research and find all these incentive amounts in one convenient place, you can go to our website and we have this Rewiring America calculator that can tell you what incentives are available based on the utilities that are present in your zip code. So let me see if I can, if you want to stop sharing, I can pull this up. Najma. And okay, let me share my screen. It's taking a minute. Let's see. Let's see if this works. Okay. So you go to this website or the web page, Electrify Everything Minnesota, and you can find this calculator here. So you'd put in, are you a homeowner or a renter? And then your zip code. Looks like I already punched one in. I looked up in Eagan zip code. It's very easy. 55123. So very easy to remember. And this is telling me my electric utility is Dakota Electric, Minnesota Energy Resources. You can put whatever for household income. Um, there are some that are income eligible incentives. I'm not sure any of those. I don't think any of those that you would find would be dependent on income. But you put that in and then you view the results. And you go here, has your household information. You can go back and edit it if you want to. Select your project. Are you looking at cooking stove range, electrical panel and wiring, heating and ventilation, water heater? We look at a water heater, we see that there is $500 off a heat pump water heater rebate, like we said, through Dakota Electric. I saw this on here before. I'm not sure. We'll have to look at what the quick carbon rebate is. I've not seen that on there before. Um, but I do certainly know that the $500 rebate through Dakota Electric is available. So check out this page. We'll send out the slides at the end of, well, we'll send out the slides after the presentation, and then you can go and find it, or you can go to electrifyeverythingmn.org and then go to this Find Incentives tabs to access that calculator. Right. Looks like I can see it in presenter mode, Najma.
Oh, 1 second. How about how about now?
All right, looks great. So let's see. This is so we have some examples here of what this looks like. So this is an insulation air sealing example. So this Eagan resident has their attic and walls insulated and air sealed. Their walls were previously empty. This is a very old house, and an attic only had 5 inches of insulation. So they were probably just paying a lot to heat the outdoors. But that happens anyway. So if their electric utilities excel and their gas is CenterPoint. Their project, say it costs $10,000 with a $2,800 rebate from CenterPoint and $240 from Excel, that lowers their project costs to just shy of $7,000. Not too bad. They have Dakota Electric and Merck, that same $10,000 project, uh, $1,400 from Merck, and unfortunately, Dakota does not provide an insulation air sealing rebate. So that's $8,600 net project cost after incentives. And I also encourage you, Najma will talk about home energy squad visits and energy audits, but even if your home is newer and has insulation, I would tell you to check and make sure that it's air sealed, because I've done energy audits on homes before that were quite new, maybe built in the 90s, and they had plenty of insulation, but you could tell the air sealing was not done correctly and was causing some problems for the home. So even if your home is newer, I don't assume the best thing to do is to get it checked out. So, okay, next slide. Here's an air source heat pump example. So an Eagan resident installs a ducted cold climate air source heat pump, and they get a new gas furnace as their secondary system. So their electric is Dakota Electric, their gas utility is CenterPoint. An air source heat pump, we'll say costs 16,000. They would get 1,100 from Dakota Electric, 1,100 from CenterPoint. For the heat pump, and then also CenterPoint offers a rebate for the furnace, and so it's 1,000 for the furnace. So after the incentives, the rebates, it's 12,800, down from 16,000. So some pretty substantial cash for this project. Next slide. And let's say you go ahead and go forth with an air source heat pump project in your home. Another great way to save is to sign up for the electric space heating rate. I will say this is only for Xcel Energy electric customers, but I know there's some of you, and most of you are probably Dakota, but some of you are Xcel. But your primary heating source must be electric, so that's over 50% of your heating must be done by, say, that air source heat pump. And so what that means is that if you sign up for this rate, you get nearly half the standard rate from October 1st to May 31st. And that's on all your electricity. So your electricity for your air source heat pump, your refrigerator, your computers, all of your electric consumption. And so the way to enroll for that service is to call Xcel Energy's customer service and to say that you would like to switch to the electric space heating rate and tell them you have an air source heat pump. Or if you're heating with electric baseboards, you could even do that. But that's a good way to save. And yeah, it's like 40% less. I think it's 6.5 cents a kilowatt hour, and the standard rate is around 12. So big savings. Next slide. All right, and Najma is going to close us out with resources.
So you might be thinking that we've thrown a lot of information your way, so you might be thinking this is a lot, where do I start? And we'll say the first thing, the first step is you can either call or email our Electrify Everything advisors. They're cost-free and pressure-free. They can help you in answering your questions about home electrification projects. They can help you connect to high quality contractors, financing, as well as utility rebates. You can contact them either by calling, emailing, or by filling the online form. But you'll first need to start with a home energy squad visit. If your home has never had any audit, we would suggest starting with this. Home Energy Squad is a low-cost utility program to help you find out what systems and equipment your home has. So they assess your home's weatherization. Earlier, I showed the infrared camera images. That's one of the cool gadgets that they come in with. They do a full audit on like your walls, attics, on all of your appliances and things like that. And at the end of your audit, they give you a very detailed report on their findings. And they can also help you get connected with recommended contractors and incentives. And in order to contact the home or schedule an appointment with Home Energy Squad visit, you can use the hyperlink at the bottom. Speaking of contractors, there are several contractors that are available to you. So if you're interested in heat pumps, there's the Minnesota Air Source Heat Pump Collaborative Preferred Contractor Network. If you're interested in installation projects, Home Energy Squad partners with installation contractors so they can help you figure out contractors. And then lastly, there is the heat pump water heaters network. It's the heat pump water heater installer network, which was actually created by Electrify Everything Minnesota because we saw there was a need for them, especially with how heat pump water heaters are really people are like installing more of them. So we thought that we needed more like contractors who are like vetted and know how to install these appliances. Other resources are the energy assistance and weatherization assistance. So energy assistance helps people with bill payment, especially during winter months. They also help with emergency heating system repair or replacements, and they also therefore renters and homeowners. And then another one is the weatherization assistance, which is income. There's an income eligibility guideline. So like if you qualify, it helps people with like receive free installation of installation air sealing, as well as like heating system on like water heaters. So on the table on the right. The table on the right, there's the income eligibility guideline based on like household size and annual income, which can help you like figure out where you are at. And then lastly, in order to find your local service providers, you could use the third hyperlink to figure out where you live and like who are your local service providers. Just a summary of where to get started. First, you will need to schedule a Home Energy Squad visit to learn more about your home. And then you could contact an Electrify Everything advisor for expert advice, rebate navigation, as well as contractor connections. That was it for our presentations. If we're gonna go into our Q&A session, so I'm gonna quickly stop sharing.
And if you have a question, you can either come off mute or you can put it in the chat. Najma, I have a question for you. You're talking about induction stoves and say I'm interested in an induction stove. You mentioned it has to be magnetic. I have no idea what kinds of, just to save me the magnet test, what kinds of cooking materials would be magnetic or would work for an induction stove? And am I gonna have to replace my cookware?
Great question. There are several cookwares that are compatible with induction stoves, such as like ceramic, steel. Um, and then there are some that are not compatible, such as like copper. Let's see. Yeah, there's several cookwares that are very compatible, such as ceramic. Why can't I remember the other three? There are a few more, but the ones that are not compatible are like copper and I think steel. But any cookware with a flat bottom, I think it will be compatible with like induction stove.
Yeah, I think aluminum isn't a common
Aluminum.
one that
Yeah.
doesn't work. So great. We're getting some thank yous. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thanks for
Yeah,
taking
thank
time out of
you.
your evening. Any other questions? Last call.
Thank you, Daniel. As Daniel mentioned at the beginning, we're gonna have a few more events. So if you want to learn more about heat pumps, types of them, as well as like just get deep where we deep dive into like the all of the electrification projects we talked about. We have our upcoming workshop on October 8th, and it's going to be everything about heat pumps. And yeah, so sign up if you're
Naj
interested.
Najman, do you want to send them the survey?
Yes. Good call out.
We can send it the email too. We have a survey for you all. We like to know how we did, how we can improve, and really appreciate it. It's a very brief survey, but we'd love to hear your thoughts, and we do take them into consideration and try to improve our content. So there it is. Okay. And we'll send
I
out the email and the slides as well.
Yeah, all the resources, the slides, as well as the survey, along with recording of the webinar will be sent out. Do you see any more questions in the chat, Sean?
Nope, I don't. Just people are just saying thanks for the info. So
Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I think if we don't have any more questions, I'm gonna stop recording here.